Perhaps the most famous theropod after the T-Rex and Velociraptor, Allosaurus has had a fair amount of depictions in the media. Some left us with nostalgia, while others had us asking,
"What the f*** is this piece of sh*?"
It's also one of the oldest dinosaurs shown on screen, with some of the earliest renderings being shown more than 100 years ago. With this being said, most of the time they are shown in some sort of documentary, with the most popular being Big Al. And while this is not just my favorite Allosaurus but prehistoric specimen as a whole, he wouldn't do much to the things on the list. Some of these Allosaurs are able to level an entire city while holding back, and others are somehow twice the size of the largest T-Rexes on record. As decided by the poll of judgment, this video is going to be covering the most powerful Allosaurs we have ever seen in media, whether it be in a game, movie, or series. If you want to see more stuff like this, hit that like and subscribe button and watch to the end. You can always unsubscribe if you find the content abhorrent. With the introductions finally out of the way, let's finally take a look at the strongest versions of Allosaurs to grace our eyes. Ark strikes again, with this now being the 4th creature to make it on one of my videos. Before I talk about the Allosaurus in this game, I just want to say that Snail Games has just brought great shame to the game. They already were doing too much with you, now having to pay for DLC unique creatures, and also somehow making the optimization for the game even worse after promising to improve it. But this trailer for their newest map was the nail in the coffin. I have never seen any other game as large as Ark even attempt to make a map trailer with AI. And Snail Games thought it was somehow a good idea. With my little rant over, Ark is not your average survival game, since you'd need to tame creatures and craft some high level items to beat mob bosses so that you can ascend. Majority of things in this game are severely oversized, like the Giganotosaurus that weighs twice as much as a blue whale, and the Titanosaur that pushed 600 tons in weight. Our Allosaurus is also very exaggerated in terms of mass. With the Ark's version standing at more than 20 feet tall and 60 feet long, this thing is just about twice the length of the average Allosaurus, but more than 4 times the weight of the largest. Just based on the size of this thing, compared to an Ark character, I'd put it between 12 and 16 tons. While its size is impressive, some of its abilities are able to outshine that. These guys are found in packs of 3 with 1 alpha, and when they are together they get a buff in every stat. And the alpha has a slash ability that causes even the largest of targets to bleed out so profusely that their speed is reduced by more than 50%. These guys are also hyper aggressive, with them having a larger aggro range than most of the vanilla creatures. Like a lot of the larger theropods in the game, these guys are able to withstand a decent amount of gunfire, and if it's a high level, it could take the occasional rocket launcher blast and still keep fighting. The Nash ability the Allosaurus in this game does is heavily influenced by the hatchet method that scientists in the earlier 2000s proposed. I still believed it was still a thing for just over a year ago, but this method of killing prey was disproved a decent time ago, and it's basically the theory that Allosaurus swung its upper jaw like an axe to kill prey. While it may not work for the real version, it's what makes the Allosaurus a strong pick for boss fights. And even taking on the Giganotosaurus in packs with ascended crafted saddles after being tamed, because even a pack of 10 wild Allosaurus would still somehow get stomped by Ark's strongest carnivore. In a real life setting, they certainly are one of the largest Allosaurs we have ever seen. At its size, it would pick up Chaos Theory's Allosaurus the same way that T-Rex did and toss it to the side. It also has actual hardened osteoderms on its body for extra durability, which was only seen with Zeb in Dominion. Now one-on-one against an Ark Rex, it is able to put up a good fight and bring the opponent below half health, despite the decently sized weight margin, and almost everything in its size bracket in vanilla Ark pretty much loses to it. Besides the Megalosaurus, those things are mini Rexes. I'd say that it would be able to beat the Jurassic theropods purely due to the size advantage and armor, but at parity I think most of the megatheropods in the franchise would be able to take the dub, but it would be very close. The franchise's Allo, however, isn't in this bracket. It's getting ragdolled without question. Still, its size and raw power, combined with its broken abilities, have allowed it to be placed on this list. Some honorable mentions for this list would sadly be the Allosaurus from Dinosaurs with Stephen Fry, which is the worst dinosaur documentary ever created. This Allosaurus is 15 tons, and can survive being stomped out by a 30-ton Diplodocus. The reason it's not on the list is because it is very slow and has a very slow reaction time. Also, even with the hatchet method, this thing still appears to do very little damage. Its size was the only thing it had. The Valley of Gwangi would be much more suitable and is a great film, but some of his feats hold him back. Gwangi is about the size of Rexy, or just a bit smaller and can be taken out fairly easily. He was knocked out by some rock debris that weighed just as much as him, and is able to be subdued by some horses and a cage made out of wooden stakes. The Allosaurus in Camp Cretaceous in my opinion has better durability since he was able to be bitten in the midsection and then tossed across the floor by adult T-Rex and still get up uninjured. Not downplaying Gwangi in any way since it has an interesting storyline, similar to Kong where he was taken from his home to be used as an attraction. The next Allosaurus, whether you like it or hate it, is by far the most powerful Allosaurus ever created. You know the drill, once something from Dinosaur King is mentioned, it's almost 100% going to be the strongest on any list. And this one is no exception. This dinosaur anime is what a lot of you grew up with and what probably got you into dinosaurs. Personally, I was a Dinosaur Dan kid. Anyway, this is the Pokemon version of dinosaurs with dinosaurs that can be interacted with after they are released from cards with the use of element stones and tablets, and just like Pokemon, this anime has its own Team Rocket called the Alpha Gang, who want to gather up all the dinosaurs for Dr. Z so he can basically partake in dinosaur slavery. The weakest of these dinosaurs can at least clear a large building, with the strongest being multiplanetary in terms of scaling. This Allosaurus is not planetary by any means like the Black T-Rex, but he still is one of the stronger ones. In the very first scenes we get of this guy, he destroyed a concrete building without any resistance while chasing a pig, and he starts to destroy multiple other buildings in the search for food, causing havoc in the city. This guy even sends Chomp, who is in the top 10 strongest in the series, airborne, by launching him more than 200 feet and then later defeating him. He is so fast that you can see a mirage when he runs, and his slashes are able to wear Chomp down enough to the point where he turns back into a card. Somehow he is able to launch a Spinosaurus in the air with just its head and then later beat that same Spinosaurus without receiving even a scratch. The only time he met his match was when he fought Ace, who is one of the fastest dinosaurs in the show. The two basically have a battle of speedsters and it resembles the Goku and Jiren fight for a brief moment. The Allosaurus was holding his own for a while, but Ace's superior speed was too much for even him. But to be fair, Ace was able to beat dinosaurs such as Terry in some of the earliest episodes. Now these dinosaurs have endured attacks that are able to slice buildings in half, and some would be able to destroy a small state, but they somehow survive and have no bruises on them. Chomp especially was able to tank powered up attacks head on that would clear a city and continue the fight, but was able to be taken down by the Allosaurus, although granted he was in his base form. I have yet to find a dinosaur from another show or game that is able to beat the Dinosaur King version of them. Like, I can't find any other Allosaurs that could even approach Dinosaur King's version without being turned into sushi. The only thing I can think of is if a person in God mode rides an Ark Allosaurus and tries to fight, and even then I don't think Ark's Allosaurus would win. This Allosaurus is no doubt the strongest, with it being able to receive and output damage similar to a kaiju, but the next Allosaurus is the largest on the list, and uses that size to strike fear in all the inhabitants in his universe. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of the Land Before Time Court, where once again a sharp tooth has made it on the list. These crash outs always seem to find a way to make it on the list, with either their crazy feats of strength or their unfiltered crackhead behavior. The Allosaurus in the Land Before Time doesn't really look like an Allosaurus, it doesn't even have the crest, and it has 2 claws instead of 3. To be honest, I thought it was a Rex most of my life. Regardless, like most sharp teeth, its morphology doesn't hold it back. One very important thing about this Allosaurus is that it was the only dinosaur able to survive the type of bodily injury the OG Sharptooth endured. In a fight, the OG Sharptooth obviously wins, but this Allosaur has endured similar amounts of damage the OG had to deal with. The Allosaurus comes from the 6th movie installation, and during the earliest scenes stands on business. Like there isn't any build-up, he starts to chase Sarah's little relatives, and ends up getting his head stuck in a healthy tree, and then just breaks out to start back his chase. He does end up getting temporarily stuck in the forest because of his large size. When he finds out Littlefoot and his friends are in this massive log, the dude somehow has the strength to not just lift this log up with no effort, but also toss it some distance away out of frustration, and like a decent amount of the large sharp teeth in the franchise, he is able to jump in a way that should not be possible for his corporal build. On top of that, he has a good sense on balance and only falls because he bites a big piece of the log and weakens it in the middle. This is where he showed some durability feats similar to the original Sharptooth. Like the first Sharptooth, this guy plummets at more than 1,000 feet down a chasm and survives. Both of these guys didn't show any sort of discomfort or any sort of injury from the fall. They just immediately got up when they smelled a baby dinosaur. Like that is some insane durability. Most other Sharptooth that have fell from a height even remotely close to this have died. But this guy was somehow able to sleep it off as though he just had a bad headache or something. I just don't know what these guys are made of, because he is supposed to be a pool of blood and splattered organs after a fall of even half that height. Later on, he ends up temporarily forming a truce with another Sharptooth in order to take down Littlefoot's grandfather. In the movie, the other Sharptooth was a T-Rex, but in the flashback Littlefoot has in the new series, there was a second Allosaurus. In the 6th movie, however, both him and the other Sharptooth are defeated when Doc and Grandpa Longneck pull down a pillar of stone and renders them immobile. There's a chance that the T-Rex Sharptooth might have died, but there is almost no shot the Allosaurus died from that. Not after he survived a fall like this. His size is also impressive. While he isn't necessarily the largest of sharp teeth, he still is in the upper range in terms of size, especially when comparing him to the size of an adult Apatosaurus. The last two Allosaurs had to be put into one category since I just couldn't decide if size and raw strength can beat insane durability and speed. The last two Allosaurus in our list are honestly a mix between size with no feet and balls of steel with little power to pack him up. These would be the Allosaurus from Land of the Lost and the Allosaurus in Camp Cretaceous Chaos Theory, which is the strongest Allosaurus in the franchise. We're going to start off with the Allosaurus from the Land of the Lost. The Land of the Lost stars Will Ferrell, who plays Rick Marshall, along with two other people. They basically enter a water slide that leads them to a prehistoric alien-like world and meet an ape man called Shaka. The most popular character, however, is Grumpy, who is a large T-Rex that is so intelligent that he is able to understand human language and respond according. The Allosaurus shows up during what is called feeding time apparently, and briefly fights with Grump at somewhat equal grounds for most of the time for a couple of seconds, but then they both turn their attention to Marshall and the crew after he insults them. This Allosaurus is between 48 and 54 feet long and almost 20 feet tall. As for the weight, some sources say 12 tons while others say up to 15, but I don't think it's that heavy. I'd place it at around 9 tons. It doesn't really do much in its screen time. All it does after its brief scuffle with Grumpy, who is heavier by 4 tons or more, is chase Marshall around just to get the Shin Godzilla treatment, as it basically swallows liquid nitrogen and dies on the spot. So while it may be kind of featless, its stats alone put it on the list, especially its size and speed, but that speed is easily outclassed by the Jurassic World version. So it's thought that this Allosaurus was the one from the Battle of Big Rock, and if that's the case, then it would now be even bigger, since I think in the short film it was just over 35 feet, and in Chaos Theory it's close to 40 feet. But this is all if it is actually the same dinosaur. During the battle at Big Rock, this guy doesn't hesitate to take on an adult Nasutoceratops and takes hits that should shatter bone. In Chaos Theory he was portrayed as an early villain, since most believed he was the one that took Brooklyn's arm, but it was actually one of the Atrociraptors. In terms of speed, he is able to run more than 30 miles per hour, which is impressive for an animal that is almost 40 feet and around 4.8 tons. This Allosaurus also doesn't discriminate on who he would fight. He already seems to somehow always attack some of the largest ceratopsians and take the full force of their attacks and walk it off. Hell, the dude tried to pull a Rexy and tried to run up on a theropod larger than him. At least Rexy somewhat had a chance. This dude just got picked up by the Rex once and slammed onto the floor. Then he is picked up by the midsection and lifted in the air just to be slammed on the floor again. Again, he doesn't limp or show any sort of injury. He runs away perfectly with not one stutter. So in this battle of balls of steel versus size, I'm going to have to give it to size. Because let's face it, the Jurassic World Allosaurus isn't beating another Allosaur almost double its weight. With that being said, he's at least powerful in his own right. Alright folks, that's just about it for this video. Hope you Allo fans liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.